Hello, everyone. Welcome to New York Augmented Reality. Welcome back to NYAR. It's great to have you. Great to see so many familiar faces. Alex, welcome. Gawkar, good to see you. Grammy, welcome back. The number one NYAR member. Thank you for joining. Hey, Marjorie. Okay. Barry, should we get started?
I think we shall.
Okay.
Welcome.
Welcome. Okay. So this is New York Augmented Reality on Monday, May 23rd, 2022. And we're really happy that you joined us tonight. So thank you very much for being part of our group. And Barry and I worked hard on putting tonight's event together. We really think you're going to enjoy it. So buckle up. Today's our 24th event, and we've had the opportunity to host close to 100 amazing speakers from across the industry. And earlier this month, we officially reached over 1,500 members, which is a great milestone. And we couldn't have made it here without your support. So thank you for being part of the NYAR community. Now I'd like to take a moment of silence for the wonderful co-organizer of the group, Barry Seff.
Giddy up.
Barry, if you'd like to say a few words of wisdom to the group, it would be an honor.
Well, you did say it's a moment of silence. So there you
Thank you, Barry. Thank you. These events wouldn't be possible without your support. Feel free to add Barry on LinkedIn to stay in touch. Our next event is on June 27th. That's a mistake. It's on June, I think it's June. It's the Monday, either June 27th or June 28th.
Oh, we could do it live from Silicon Valley. I will be there. We could meet up with them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually June 27th. And we have great speakers, including Josh Esther. He's a software engineer, and he wrote the book Going the Distance in Babylon JS, which is a web 3D renderer. And he wrote a whole book on it. So he'll be sharing some knowledge on that. You can RSVP on Meetup, and we hope to see you there. This was actually a video, a little spinning. And although AR is an incredible industry, we realize that behind the rose-colored holographic glasses are isolated developers and designers looking for ways to connect. Thus, in order to give back, we created the Augmented Report, which keeps you up to date with the latest news from across the industry. And you could sign up for the Augmented Report through a link that Barry may or may not put in the chat. So that's the Augmented Report. And then in addition, we have a Slack group with over 80 members from the Meetup, and it's a great way to stay in touch with others and continue the conversation after the event. So feel free to join our Slack as well. And if you'd like to be involved in organizing a future NYAR Meetup or speaking at a future event or sharing your work, reach out to me or Barry, and we'd love to get the chance to chat. Now, before we move on to presentations, I want to take a few moments to go over some of the latest news and industry happenings from this past month or upcoming month. Lightship Summit, Niantic Lightship Summit is in San Francisco tomorrow, and the opening keynote will be streamed on YouTube, so you can just Google Niantic Lightship Summit to find out more. The XR Awards is hosting a ceremony on May 26th. Categories include Best Augmented Reality Solution, so we'll be announcing the winners. It could be a good opportunity to view some really cool companies in the space, so definitely check that out. And then AWE, Augmented World Expo, is on June 1st to June 3rd. I know a few members from the group plan on attending, so if you are going, definitely reach out. Opportunities, T-Mobile has an accelerator mixed reality program with Qualcomm Snapdragon Spaces, and they're looking for developers to join their accelerator to build AR apps on Snapdragon Spaces. So if you're interested, it could be a good opportunity. NASA is hosting the Mars XR Challenge for you to build virtual reality or mixed reality, just 3D assets pretty much, in Unreal Engine for use by NASA to see how the elements that you create will be affected in Mars and how they could be used. So you could look into that as well. And Microsoft has a hackathon next week, I think, or in 2 weeks. And it is a hackathon for the new MRTK3, which will be released next week as well. So you can check that out as well. Latest news, Google this past month acquired micro LED creators, Raxium. Qualcomm released reference design for smart glasses that wirelessly tethers to a smartphone, which is cool. And then Hatch Kids announced their developer platform, which enables kids to learn how to develop mixed reality content. So hopefully in the future, the AR apps that we see will get better and better over time. Now, without further ado, it's an honor to introduce you to tonight's speakers, those who are pushing the industry forward and turning the impossible into a reality. After each presentation, we'll have a Q&A period with the speakers, so feel free to post your questions and comments throughout, and we can relay them to the speakers after their talk. Our first speaker is Lauren Cason. She is a creative technologist based in Santa Fe, New Mexico. After getting her start in games as an intern at the MIT Game Lab, she went on to work on award-winning titles, including Monument Valley 2, for which she was selected as a Forbes 30 under 30. After then, working in the technology development group at Apple, she was the creative director of XR at Meow Wolf, where her team's experience, The Garage, was selected as one of the top XR installations of 2019 by Forbes. Most recently, she co-founded RefractAR, an XR studio that creates immersive emerging technology experiences, and was one of the first 7 artists to build experiences for launch of Spectacles 2021. Thank you, Lauren, for joining. It's great to have you back.
Hi, it's nice to see you. Let me pull up my talk. We good? We can see it? Awesome.
Looks
great.
Good.
So hi, my name is Lauren. I'm an artist and a creative technologist based out of Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I mostly work within the space of XR and emerging technology. I've had a pretty eclectic career. I've made work for a lot of different places. I had this whole career in video games before I went all in XR, and recently I started a studio with my co-founder Sam, and like some of the soul searching that you do when you start a studio is obviously like, what does your company do? What is your point of view? What are you trying to make? And I think that my point of view is this pile of trash. What I hope XR is going to do, what I see as its potential as a technology, why I want to work with it. I always come back to this pile of trash and how it made me feel. So this pile of trash is not actually a pile of trash. It is a very meticulously painted bronze sculpture by an artist named Dirck. And I saw this and several of his other pieces in a gallery in London, and they were all on the floor. These just like immaculate sculptures of trash and precious metal, like a cigarette butt and a foam to go container, and just like on the cement floor. And they were so beautiful. They were so perfectly sculpted and painted, and I was totally mesmerized. And when I left the gallery, this funny thing happened where for weeks after, I was really fascinated with every single piece of trash that I saw, like on the subway, on the street. It was all screaming out to me, and I couldn't see anything else. And I was fascinated by this shift that had happened in my perception, that I was suddenly seeing things in my world that were totally invisible to me before. Even though, you know, like the visual stimulus was there. I'm sure there was trash in London, but I didn't see it, and now I saw it everywhere. And I had this new enhanced perception of my world, and I was like, whoa, that I want to do that. Whatever just happened in my brain, that's what I want to do. And I've worked on a lot of projects that are about perceptual shifts. So Monument Valley was, working with non-Euclidean multi-stable images and constructing these worlds and these puzzles that were about challenging the way that you perceive that image in that world to work. And I think that that interest I have in shifting your perception of the world is actually why VR has never excited me that much. I've worked on VR titles. I think it's very cool to build entirely new worlds for people to inhabit. But I was sort of realizing I don't actually want to build new worlds. I'm pretty invested in the real world. I want to make things that help people perceive and feel interested and invested in that too. The real world is kind of terrifying and messed up. I am not arguing that escapism does not have its place, especially right now. But as a designer, I always came back to the trash and how much my experience of the real world got shifted. And that's how I got excited about mixed reality, because it's all about this world, right? Like, if it's good. If my phone is this magic window into other worlds that I can peer into, and VR is magic glasses into other worlds, then like maybe MR is the one that's going to be the magic glasses into this world. I want those glasses. I want the world I'm in to feel really, really precious and meaningful, and like Jesus could be on all my toast and all trash could be made of gold. And I think AR MR has like a chance of doing that. And that's what I chase in my work, is not displacing the real world, but enhance or alter or shift perceptions of this very precious and singular world we're all, in together. So I got excited about XR. I left games, worked in Silicon Valley for a while. That was that. And then I ended up back in the Southwest at Meow Wolf as their XR creative director. So Meow Wolf, if you don't know about Meow Wolf is this once art collective, now large scale immersive exhibit. And let me tell you, I was really excited about working at Meow Wolf. They have the whole perceptual shift thing down. They are so good at it. If you have been there and you've walked through the fridge, then you know how good they are at shifting your perception of the architecture of your reality. And they had all this amazing connected, wired up physical spaces I was going to get to play in and learn in. So super happy time at Meow Wolf. And the first thing I got to direct for them was this experience called The Garage. The Garage was an immersive play done in Magic Leaps that took place at Neighborhood Autos, which was an intergalactic auto shop. We had a warehouse in Santa Fe that we set up like a mechanic shop, but everything was not quite as it seemed. And the biggest thing I learned from The Garage was placing your experiences. And this comes back to the stuff that I was saying about perception, that the biggest impact might not be where you think. So our big finale in The Garage was this mech. A mechanic would take you over to this 10-foot amazing mech. You would touch it, solenoids would fire, and like do, and you'd have this avatar moment where it chooses you. And we have this really slick interface with glowing buttons and like beep boop art, and you get to travel the galaxy. And this is where we really invested in slick visuals and making sure the Magic Leap experience was really, really tight. It was the longest experience in the entire play. And you know what people did? Pretty much to a T when they got up on the mech. Pretty much all of them took off their headset. And we're like, oh man, this is where we spent all of our dev time. But okay, like I could kind of understand it. It's pretty overwhelming as an experience. But you know where people ended up spending a lot of time in their headsets? Was this box. It was a box that was in the room because it was there already and it was bolted to the floor. And we were like, we'll put some stuff in the box. We'll put like a deer running around in it. And people might look at it for a minute between the mech and the rocket car. But then people were totally obsessed with the deer in the box. And I was like, what is going on here? We spent all this time on the mech and people are in love with the box from Home Depot. So here's what I think was going on. I talked about, being interested in perceptual shifts earlier, right? So like, what exactly is perception anyway? It's a combination of stimuli and then my personal mental models for that stimuli, right? So I see a cat, I've probably got some mental models for cat behavior. If the cat starts flying, something in the Venn diagram probably has to shift. I've generally got expectations about what a box is going to do. I know how wooden boxes work. I've got a general idea of what they might contain. It's a box. But with a mech, most people walking around in the world don't have a mental model for what riding a mech is going to be like. there's got to be an expectation for you to subvert. You can't just be doing 100% new information. Whereas with the box, if the box has behaviors that don't fit into my mental model of boxes, that's interesting. My brain is telling me, we should probably pay attention to this. So now one of the principles I try to subscribe to is, don't necessarily put the most beautiful XR thing, experience that you can build on the most beautiful thing that you have. You need contrast between the mundane and the extraordinary, between the expected and the unexpected. It's a pile of trash, but it's made out of gold. It's a box. It contains entire worlds. It's a fridge. It's also a portal. Sometimes you don't need a 10-foot mech. Sometimes you just need a box. So I spent 2.5 years at Meow Wolf. We did a lot of cool, weird stuff. And then Snapchat approached me and they were like, hey, we're launching this headset. It's untethered. It works really well outside. We'd like you to be one of the artists we launch with. And I was like, that's super cool. 100%. Yes. And I knew, okay, I learned a lot at Meow Wolf about how to bridge physical and digital gaps, how to do those interesting perceptual shifts. And now there was this added challenge that it was going to be outside. It's no longer the super controlled environment the way that Meow Wolf exhibits are, but it's indoors. And I won't go into that project too much since it was the focus the last time I was here, but I do want to talk about something that I learned building this particular experience, particularly to do with understanding how to build for outdoors. So the project was based around historic road signs, and one of the signs was for this place called the Valle Caldera. It's a 13-mile wide volcanic caldera that was formed in an eruption 1.25 million years ago. You see this educational visualization, you'd hear a story, you'd look out over the caldera and you see mountains labeled and sort of look between the mountains and the visualization and hopefully get a sense of scale. And if I could do this again, if I could go back, I would actually approach the entire project really, really differently. Because building an experience for this is not the same as building an experience for this. And all the thinking I had done during that project, and honestly for most of my work, was around the scale of things that are the size of the road sign. And augmenting something that's honestly, it's not that beautiful. I love them, but it's not exactly the Valle Caldera. And what did I learn at Meow Wolf? Don't put your most beautiful XR on the most beautiful stuff in the real world. Can't compete with a mech. Probably can't compete with nature. And I don't want to compete with nature. I actually question, if I could go back, if I would just get rid of this experience and do the educational experience for this particular project on a weird road sign on a dirt highway. Just maybe don't put your tech on top of this. But I do think there's a world where XR could be good in a place like this, regardless of my Luddite ideas about putting technology in nature. Oh, I'm missing a slide here. Well, we're already experiencing a lot of technology in nature. Our devices are going with us into the natural world. If you've ever been on a hike and seen people taking their selfies at the top of the hike, that is, we're already doing it. And we can fight it, but maybe we don't fight it. Maybe we say, okay, this is the world. This is what's happening. What do we want to do with that? Because if it's phones today, it's headsets tomorrow, and we have the ability right now to think about and design this experience and hopefully make it a little bit better and a little more connective than this one. So again, coming back to that perceptual shift thing, I started to think a little differently. If we don't want to just throw out XR in moments where we're experiencing flow or connection to other people, or connection to nature, or majesty or beauty, or whatever it is that's nice about the real world, what would good XR look like in those moments? And to be clear, before I go down this line of thought, I'm totally ready to throw it out in those moments, but I'm also ready to do the thought experiment that there could be a world where it's present and it's good. So with that in mind, let's talk about this baking demo that I made. This was accidentally the most popular thing I've ever made, but it was a cooking video. It was a demo of okay, what would it be like to have be doing cooking with AR, and you having measurements, being able to see your recipe, seeing timers and stuff local to the stuff that you're working with. And baking for me is like a pretty special, sacred space. I bake all the time, and I spend a lot of time thinking about physicality with baking, and physicality generally, in relationship between physical things and digital spaces. And there's not like a whole lot that's more physical than food and eating. And I was interested in tackling this space in particular because I feel like XR gets food like really, really, really wrong a lot. We present a lot of these super dystopian visions of AR and food. So we have the Scary Cucumber video game. We have the Scary Fork. Scary Fork is a classic, the fork that yells at this poor man for eating his baked beans. Scary Grocery Store, another classic. And these are good. We need dystopias. So we can say, hey, I don't want to live in that world. That seems like a bad world. We need those things to be able to point at. And what I wanted to achieve here was not fundamentally altering the experience of baking, right? Like I don't want to turn it into a video game, but ideally just removing points of friction, things like touching my phone or checking a timer or pulling out a ruler to measure dough so I can maintain flow and focus on what's already enjoyable there. And so yeah, like I said, sticky phones, multiple timers, just fixing all of that stuff. And the design process for working with something like baking versus something like Meow Wolf is really different. And I think one of the hardest things for me right now is knowing, what is it that you're working with? Is it something that I'm not engaging with and I don't care about? And if that's true, like how do I invite you into the present, right? But then if it is a space or a thing or an activity that I do care about, if it's I'm baking or I'm with a loved one or I'm on a mountain, how do I remove friction from the experience so you can be more present? I want to preserve your perception. We spend like a little under half our time with our mind wandering and imagine future worlds or like ruminating on past worlds where we said an embarrassing thing in middle school. And there's really strong research that we are the happiest when we're actually living in our present moment. So in moments where it's likely that people are doing that they are present, then as a designer, we want to step back. And in the moments where we're likely not really present, we're, looking at a wooden box or waiting at the bus, giving us a reason to pay attention and be here and be present in that space. And that's hard. Like, I don't feel like I totally got it right with the baking demo. As a home baker, like, I don't actually know that I would use that. I don't know that it steps back enough from the experience. But like we have to make our awkward attempts at proposing good things because we're at the very beginning of this technology's possibility of being in our daily lives. So like if way out here is a dystopic hellscape and over here is utopia, and let's say we think we're like leaning just like a little bit dystopia right now. We got like kind of big consequences in the future and a lot of ground to cover to even get back to neutral. But if we scooch this up, like just a little, it was not a big scooch. It can make a really big difference in our trajectory in the future. And I think the way we're doing that right now, mostly in public discourse, is in reaction to the bad outcomes. And that's important, and we need to do that. We need to react to the worlds we don't want. We also need to point at the ones that we do want. And we need to at least be trying to propose good outcomes, because even as a personal skeptic, I do think this technology is coming. And what I can do as a technologist is propose publicly ways for this technology to exist in our lives that feel positive. And also being ready to listen. And if people are saying, no, that feels bad, listen and change. I would love to see more prototyping happening publicly, not behind closed campus doors, so we can actually find our blind spots and make actually good work. So while you're making things for different places like the kitchen or the mountain or the McDonald's parking lot, wherever it is, I hope that as you participate in constructing our future, that you'll take with you the thought of, not just how do I build cool headset things, but how do I do that well? How do I take that responsibility seriously when I'm working with emerging technology? And how can I use this to give people new ways of perceiving the physical world they are already in? And how do I respect the things and the spaces Or maybe I don't want a new view. Maybe the only thing I want is to be more present there and to not look at my phone, to pay attention to my pie or look at the mountain. And then as a designer, knowing the difference between those things and being ready to be humble and change in service of trying to get it right, because the stakes are very high. I would love for us all to be trying to turn our trash into gold and try not to accidentally turn what is already gold into trash. And that's what I have for you. Here's my information. My studio is available for work, and I always want to talk to people who are doing cool, interesting art things in XR. If you're doing stuff about food or dance or large outdoor spaces or history, I definitely want to chat and be your friend. So thanks for listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lauren. Amazing.
Thank you, Lauren.
Amazing stuff.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have some questions from our esteemed audience, building upon your themes of perception and neuroscience. How does social media and watching other people's behavior impact your perception of yourself? And on building on that, can AR help with that?
Yeah, that's so interesting. Because so much of AR currently is tied up in social media, right? That the way that most people have experienced AR for the first time is probably a face filter, right? And I think it has enormous potential to do damage, and to be hurtful, as a technology, especially when it's tied up, in our self-perception and the way that we're looking at our bodies. I would love to see more AR that's moved off of our faces and into the world. So I hope that answers that question. I don't know, but it scares me, and I hope that we don't fuck it up.
I hear that, most definitely. I'm into that.
Yeah.
Okay, the question about, do you have neuroscientists on your staff, or do you consult with neuroscientists, or should you?
I would love to. I have some friends who are neuroscientists, but no, that's currently the studio exists of me and an engineer, and we're hoping to make our first hires in 2023. But I do think a neuroscientist would be ideal, and then an ethicist. If I had my druthers, I would definitely want to be working with, or at least consulting with, an ethicist with any kind of emerging technology work.
Most definitely. So much.
Oh, I can't hear you.
You broke up, Barry.
Oh, well, I don't know if you can hear me. I'm probably in a bad zone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just saying, thank you so much for joining us again as a repeat offender. We love it and love to hear about your projects, and wish you all the best in all of your future endeavors.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. It was great being here.
Thank you. Can I ask you one more question from Fred Jones that just came in?
Yeah, absolutely.
In some of the examples of the scary fork and the fox in the grocery store, what was it about those experiences that was negative?
So those three are from videos that were specifically meant to present dystopian futures for AR. So like the grocery store one is, it's called Hyperreality by somebody named Kichi. The fork one, I can't remember the name of that. And then the video game one is from a thing called Sight. You can find all of these on YouTube. But they were all presenting AR as something in the future which was going to be probably pretty negative and pretty scary. So yeah, I would say just go look them up. They're great fiction.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. Cool. Barry, any other questions?
I always have more, but I think we need to roll to our next presenter.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Thanks again, Lauren. It was great to have you back. Love all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Next, we have Dirck Schou. I definitely didn't pronounce it right, but sorry, Dirck. I didn't ask you prior how to pronounce your last name. But Dirck,
like school and owl.
Schou. Okay, Dirck Schou. Dirck has over 20 years in business development in the technology sector and extensive experience building companies. He is focused on identifying early technologies that will revolutionize various aspects of the enterprise and building compelling real-world use cases and business models at scale. Dirck has been involved in 2 IPOs and an acquisition, including running the Western North America and Asian divisions of Encipher when it IPO'd in 2000. It's very good to have you here, Dirck. Feel free to share your screen and present.
Great. Well, I'll just say a little bit first. I'm probably one of the older presenters that you have. Taqtile itself is actually 11 years old, and the way that we got into this space is we started out as a mobile enterprise company and were invited by Microsoft to be part of the first what was then called the HoloLens Agency Readiness Program. It's now called the Mixed Reality Partner Program. We were one of the first 7 companies to go through that. And we were the only company that was not either a studio or building a game. And so our perspective was very different about what the HoloLens was supposed to be and what mixed reality could be. And that was about solving problems for real world customers. These are manufacturers and defense and utilities, and it really focused on industrial applications for what we were doing. And coming out of that program, which was a 9-month program or so, we spent the next couple of years pretty much traveling the world with Microsoft, meeting with oil and gas companies and defense organizations and manufacturers and all that sort of thing. And basically everyone needed the same thing. They needed to provide tools to frontline workers that would enable them to do things in a more efficient, effective, safer, robust way. And that led us to Manifest. So that's just a little bit of the background. I thought for this call, when Andy and I sort of did our brief, I was asking what the general sort of population was that attended this call, and it skewed tech. I'm a business person. So I thought what I would do is actually just lay out sort of our focus for everyone, just to show where all of you incredibly skilled people can look to apply your craft and your capabilities. And the enterprise space is growing rapidly, is adopting this technology rapidly, and can solve real substantial problems that are worth a lot of money to the people that can help solve those problems. So with that, I am going to jump in. I can't see anyone else. Andy, interrupt me if you can't see my screen. But I'm going to push forward. So for those of you who are not in the industrial space or focused on the business problems here, we're dealing with a real sort of gestalt shift when it comes to the industrial world. And that is that the last great highly trained set of skilled workers, i.e. the baby boomers, are retiring en masse. And this was a problem even before COVID hit. And once COVID hit, that problem doubled. We were, thanks for letting me know. We were, we were losing 10% of the workforce of highly skilled workers before COVID hit. That almost doubled. On top of that, not as many folks, younger folks were actually going into the industrial workforce. We did a great job of promoting the go to college, live a better life sort of message. And because of that, the trades really suffered from talent going into that. So you have a rapidly shrinking set of potential folks working in this sector. But at the same time, you have an increasing complexity in industrial environments. And again, I'm talking manufacturing, utilities, communications, logistics, transportation, that sort of thing. And the numbers are really staggering. 2.5 billion non-farm frontline workers are using their hands on the job. And really, prior to the concept of augmented reality, there's really no computer appropriate for them. Think about it. You cannot turn a wrench or operate a piece of equipment while you're holding a computer. And so, by the way, this is 80% of the workforce does not sit behind a desk. So this is a real big opportunity, one that we decided to focus on. And my company Taqtile is about empowering the doers of the world and empowering them to do their job flawlessly, accurately, and to completion every time. So we have a product that's called Manifest, and it delivers the ability to very non-technical subject matter experts to create step-by-step processes that allow an or an undertrained worker to follow along and to do the job, as well as an expert in many cases. And if they run into problems, call a friend, call a remote expert, and get collaboration from them to help them solve the problems, right? So, how has the market been reacting to this? Well, for those of you who've been in the AR space for some time, you know that after Microsoft sort of released the first version of the HoloLens, there was a long period of time after they sold out of the first HoloLenses before they really launched the HoloLens 2s en masse. And that's also coincided with us really sort of going into lockdown for COVID. So you had a problem where there was this great technology reference, but it just didn't seem like people were adopting it fast enough. Well, COVID was sort of the mother of all disruptive events for our day. And one thing that was clear was that the industrial world was totally unprepared for that. That's why we are still dealing with supply chain issues, and we probably will be for another year or two. So the industries that are out there that are sort of defined as potential target industries for augmented reality oriented solutions are huge, growing, and everyone realizes that this technology is real technology that can be applied to the real world. So I want to show a quick video here. This is a couple minutes of my presentation, but I think it's very important. And this is how one of our partners, actually Nokia, is thinking about this technology and how it's applicable to their target markets and how it's used.
Nokia Mission Critical Industrial Edge is ecosystem neutral. This allows enterprises to swiftly deploy on-premise edge applications from other cloud ecosystems or independent software vendors. Take Taqtile, for example, a third-party application that has been onboarded on the edge to help enterprises speed up their digital transformation. Taqtile Manifest is a mixed reality workflow solution that provides knowledge transfer in real time to deskless workers and others. It can be especially helpful for industries with an aging workforce to transfer expertise to new workers. Taqtile initially used a cloud-only architecture, but faced latency and data rate issues. They therefore opted to enable their application on our Nokia MX Industrial Edge. The combination of on-prem low latency, high-capacity processing, and private wireless high data rates now provides Taqtile users with a much more responsive experience. Deskless workers can get real-time content of higher quality through a tablet, mobile device, or virtual keyboard, just a fingertip away. Now let's put the solution to work and see how Taqtile Manifest can assist an essential process remotely, such as an airplane landing gear inspection. First, back office personnel can create and assign hundreds of tasks daily to different workers with the needed guidelines. Then, Deskless workers can access their tasks for the day on their virtual device or tablet and organize their work according to priority and job status. In this case, the worker chooses the landing gear inspection. To initiate the training for that task, scan the QR code, and the detailed instructions and supplemental tools become available. With augmented reality, you can add spatial markers, and the instruction will appear right where you need to perform the task. You can also access videos and photos to compare the ideal condition of the landing gear and contact an expert in real time if you are still unsure. This capability provides expertise that might not otherwise be available, and calling for physical help would be very inefficient. Finally, Taqtile takes it a step further by providing status and traceability of the work completed, essential for many operationally critical procedures. You can make everyone an expert by combining Taqtile Manifest, Nokia Mission Critical Industrial Edge, and Private Wireless to deliver virtual information and assistance to your employees. This will make their work easier and faster to complete with reduced error rates.
So that, Manifest is in effect a no-code, low-code workflow solution that enables enterprises to create their own workflows over real-world equipment without necessarily even having the need to create 3D models. And we see stunning results as far as how totally untrained people can actually do jobs as well as experts, right? And the great example that we have recently, this is something that British Airways did, a side-by-side test with our solution, replacing a tire on an A320 aircraft. The novice worker who had never done this job before took 48 seconds longer than the expert over a 24-minute period of time to do the same job. This is in effect, the same amount of time. This is a rounding error, right? So basically what we did was we showed how British Airways could hire totally untrained workers to do jobs as well as experts. And you may look at that, you may say, well, that's putting people out of work or whatever, but it's actually really not. It just means that the expert can focus on different things. They can focus on programming the knowledge base, getting the right photos, videos, steps in there, and then also taking, looking at feedback of users as they are going through these processes. And I think something that's very, very important, especially for this group, this is not a training platform. Manifest is an operational enablement platform. So our vision is not how do you train people faster, but how do you eliminate the entire need for training, right? So we go to market through some very strong partners. We list a lot of our large partners here, but we have plenty of small partners as well. These include systems integrators. These include studios that are trying to solve problems for their customers. But we want to aggressively partner with people that are trying to solve problems for their customers. And we think we have a pretty great tool to do that. And I think it's important, again, for everyone to know sort of where we are in the commercialization of this technology, at least from our perspective. We launched Manifest in 2017. We were the first, that we know of, the first platform to do so. We launched Manifest a couple of years before Teams Remote Assist was launched or before Guides was launched. And we really spent, the next 3.5 years or so sort of validating the market, looking at the various different verticals that were adopting our solution, and then really trying to understand how we could provide them, the same digital transformation that, let's say, an office suite delivers to professional workers that work on laptops and desktops, right? Everyone, whether you're a salesperson, a lawyer, a doctor, whatever, you're writing Word docs, using Excel, sending emails, etc. Frontline workers don't need that. They need to create content, access content, and collaborate with other workers. So that is that's a little bit about our story. I know it sounded, it's a little pitchy. I do a lot of pitching, so that's the content that's easiest for me to put together, but I think it's also a good view. Hopefully it was an interesting view into folks if you don't spend your day solving sort of business problems about how this technology is really being applied to business problems, and what are the pain points that businesses need to solve for versus, you know, what is the creative that can be done. I mean, these are incredibly powerful technologies that can really blow your mind, but where are you going to get people to pay you money to help further, you know, your passion?
Thank you, Dirk. That was awesome. Now I'm going to pass it to Barry for questions.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? So, wonderful presentation. I like the business stuff. It's pretty cool, actually. How did you check the efficacy of the program with you know, your clients? They report back to you. How does it work?
The efficacy of Manifest, the use of Manifest? Yeah, so it really depends. I mean, you know, if you have, number one, it helps to get people to pay for your solution, right? And I say that because if they don't pay for it, they'll just keep it on a shelf and they'll use it, you know, over the weekend or something like that. The key to getting real usage is to align with, you know, with business leaders, look at the problems that they're trying to solve, and then lay out what are the objectives that you're going to try to solve through the deployment of this. You know, again, I think I gave the in that last slide from 2019 to early 2022, there was a lot of, you know, getting the product market fit there. So we had a lot of folks that went through POCs and then defected or went to pilots and didn't sort of like never followed through. We're sort of beyond that at this point. So we have customers that are now building their own knowledge bases, and they are accelerating their deployment of this technology and the adoption of it in their factories or for their workforces. And we are seeing really great responses. Now, a lot of our go-to-market is driven by our systems integrator partners, because we're a software company, right? We don't have a lot of services that we can turn on to help our customers. But we also have a great community, experts.taqtile.com. Anyone can go on and can log on there. There's a lot of video material. There's a lot of training material. So plenty of our customers, they'll buy a couple of licenses and we'll never hear from them. And that's what we want, right? We need to make it dead simple for these business units to adopt this technology and deploy it themselves without a whole big, you know, army of systems integrators that's going to cost, you know, a couple $1 million in 2 years to deploy. Like, we're about getting people going as fast as possible. And so far we've been successful.
I see Fred has his hand raised. Fred, if you have a question, feel free to.
Yeah, hey, I do. Number one, that was amazing. I'm so excited seeing that. So thanks for sharing that. I do have a quick question though. You talked about using the use of technology and using AI and how long you've been in this business. So I'm assuming there was a point that maybe you considered using other forms, like maybe VR as well. And I'm wondering, what was the choice that made you decide to go primarily with AR? Not saying I don't know if you use VR at all. What was the choice in your business model that made you decide, you know, AR is the way to go and not to even go down the path of trying to make a VR solution?
I mean, business model doesn't really accurately describe it. We had an opportunity. We had been, as a mobile company, we were working with a lot of the carriers early on. And then when Microsoft was getting ready to launch the Windows Phone, they asked us to participate in that. We worked very closely with them for a year or year and a half. We built the Starbucks app, we built the Hotel Tonight app, we built Credit Karma, a whole bunch of those apps. And they basically said, hey, do you guys want to see where the future of mobility was? And so I don't know that a lot of people think about AR as the future of mobility, right? That's the way that we saw it. We saw an untethered headset that you could potentially see as like, okay, maybe this isn't where the future lies, but eventually it'll get here. And then what can you do with it? And so for us, it was an opportunity to be a first mover, and it was an opportunity to build, you know, a real, you know, innovative software company for a very specific set of use cases. So, you know, business model, you know, the analysis business model, we didn't really do a lot of that before we just decided to jump in with both feet, to be honest.
Thank you.
I think Barry's having an issue with his mic, so I'll ask the next question. I think we only have time for one or two more. This one's from Tate. Has Taqtile had issues finding talent with the talent crunch recently? If so, what sorts of skills for recruits do you find to be in short supply?
You know, we're a small company. I mean, we're 55 people globally. We're very decentralized. Our employees can work anywhere for the most part. I mean, with certain exceptions. If you're going to be a business person running our office in, you know, Sydney, Australia, you need to be there. So I can't say that we've had a lot of problems, to be honest, finding good people, but we're not hyper scaling. I mean, all the stuff that you see about the tech, you know, industry sort of like, you know, taking a hit because they were, you know, we've been very, very cautious about how we've grown. And because of that, we never really got out over our skis, and we've never really been, again, hyper scaling. So we've been able to find people when we need them. I mean, we look at a lot of people. It's not, you know, we won't take just anyone off the street, but it's more important that people have the right skills and fit our culture, which is a very egalitarian culture. It's very much a meritocracy. You know, our people can work pretty much anywhere.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry. One more question, then we have to move on. And I forgot to ask this one. How is the Magic Leap 2 that you have been using last year? How has that experience been so far?
I mean, so far it's great. I mean, again, I am not the tech guy, so that is a product that hasn't been released yet. Of course I've seen it. We've been partners with Magic Leap for a number of years already. We were pushing them into the industrial space, you know, as they were sort of trying to understand their identity going forward. My team, the folks that have been using it and developing on it, are very excited about it. I know a lot of other folks are excited about it as well. You know, so far so good. You know, they're still finishing up some of the developer tools that we need in order to really fully make benefit of our platform. But those tools are a couple weeks away. And you know, we're going to be ready to rock when they are. So so far so good.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dirck. It was great having you on.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Awesome. Next, we have Karan Ahuja and Vivian Shen. Karan is a PhD student at the School of Computer Science at Carnegie Mellon University. He uses his background in computer vision, signal processing, and applied machine learning to create novel sensing and interaction technologies. This enables a broad range of applications spanning across various domains, including augmented reality, virtual reality, health monitoring, and context-aware computing. To date, Karan has published 25 papers at top venues in human-computer interaction. He is a Scibel Scholar and the editor-in-chief of ACM Crossroads. His research has been widely disseminated, being covered by TechCrunch, Engadget, NPR, Fast Company, CNN, and Gizmodo, among others. And along with Karan, we have Vivian Shen. Vivian is a second-year at the Robotics Institute doing research with the Future Interface Group, advised by Dr. Chris Harrison. Her background is in sensors and computer vision with an interest in conservation. Recently, she has been applying her background to input modalities as well as haptic feedback, especially in the context of everyday interfaces. This summer, she'll be working with Meta Reality Labs in New York City on the Control Labs team. She is a Swartz Entrepreneurial Fellow and has an NSF grant honorable mention and is a recipient of 2 Best Paper awards at premier venues in human-computer interaction. In her free time, you can find her taking photos and playing Ultimate Frisbee. It's really great to have you both here with us tonight, and I look forward to learning more about your projects. Thank you, guys.
I can
for the
start.
introduction.
Oh, Karan
Okay,
can start.
sounds good. No, yeah, go ahead, Vivian. You can start.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, can everyone see that? Cool. So I'm Vivian, like Andy said, thank you for the introduction. I'm a second-year PhD at Carnegie Mellon in the same lab as Karan, and I'll be presenting this recent paper that I presented at Chi on April 30th, and it's mouth haptics in VR using a headset ultrasound phased array. So the idea behind this paper is that rendering haptics to the body is an open research challenge, but a large portion of haptics research is focused on hand-based interactions. We want to explore the face because it's second to the fingertips in terms of tactile sensitivity. And as you can see in this graph, you have the lips, cheek, and nose all having a very high density of mechanoreceptors, both in the spacing between receptors being very small and a lot of spatial acuity. Rendering haptics on the face has been difficult to accomplish in a practical and consumer-friendly manner. In this video are 4 prior systems from prior research that utilize a wide variety of sensors and motors to create visuohaptic VR experiences. So some of those prior systems include skin stretch actuators, vibrotactile motors, suction pads, and these are all kind of directed towards the face. While prior systems for mouth haptics include stuff like fans and air sprays and robotic arms and more. The previous systems are interesting, but they're lacking in kind of one or more of these key factors of expressivity, form factor, and cost. For expressivity, we wanted a system that could have distinguishable and localizable effects. For form factor, we took into account size, robustness, integratability, and battery life. And for cost, we wanted a system that had the potential to be mass produced for commercial use. But this is, of course, very early stage research work. And so this is the solution we arrived at, which is ultrasound phase array haptics, which we've compactly integrated into a VR headset, although of course that's not its limitation, that's just the application that we chose. So AR is on the table as well. But these ultrasound transducers can be mass produced at cost. They create small localizable haptic points that enable a range of haptic effects. So I'll talk a little bit about the background of how that works. The area of ultrasound phase array haptics haptic effect that we feel. And to further amplify the feeling of acoustic pressure, so this kind of beamforming allows you to position the focal point anywhere in 3D space, so long as the node is an appropriate distance from the transducers. Oh, it says my internet connection is unstable. Hopefully,
It broke out for a second, but it's working again.
okay, sorry. Yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen too much. But yeah, so this allows for more expressivity because it's like fine grained and precise control of the focal point, and it feels a bit like a small vibrating node in the air, as you can see in this video. And here's some like early haptic ultrasound devices from 2008 and 2013. And the device on the right spawned into this company called UltraHaptics, the company's called Ultraleap, which sells these Strato series models. And then the one at the very end is an Ultrano model, which is an open source model from UpNalab that uses this dome shape to project ultrasound. So how we implemented our system is that we iteratively developed a new and compact way to achieve haptics on the mouth. We used an Oculus Quest 2, and we used a custom PCB board with 64 transducers integrated with the Ultrano driver board that was fitted over an Arduino Mega. These transducers were bent at 45-degree angles to better focus the waves on the mouth. And we made sure, of course, that the sound pressure levels at the ears and in front of the rays was safe for consumer use, or safe for users. We also developed a software simulator in Unity to be able to manually focus the beam in space. Here, for example, you have the red bar representing the lips and the black sphere representing the node that the ultrasound array is focusing on. As you move this node in space, the transducers represented by the 64 colored spheres actually change color according to the phase offset that they're in. And we export several effects. So we have single impulse, impulse trains, swipes on the X, Y, and Z axis, persistent vibration, and we can project these sensations onto the mouth, the lips, the teeth, and the tongue as well. So those are the 6 animation types I just said. And we also have a bit more expressivity by setting world-bound and mouth element effects. So basically whether the effect is tied to a world element like rain, or a mouth element like rain, because no matter where you're in the world, you'll be feeling rain on your lips, or world element like bringing a toothbrush to your teeth or something like that. The haptic effect is tied to that, as well as some of the control parameters we set. And so in our full stack, we have drag and drop haptics in Unity. Where you create a Unity scene, you can drag and drop haptics the same way you drag and drop kind of the color or the material of the objects in Unity. We created an API that allows this kind of easily integrated software. And this prefab headset connects and sends serial code to the Arduino and the driver board, which then controls our ultrasound array. It allows you to feel the haptic effect. So we have a bunch of example scenarios. I'm not going to go over this table, but I'll show some clips of the 12 unique scenes that we created just for demonstration purposes. We started with like a horror game scenario. So as you walk through the spider web, you can feel it being drawn off your face, and it'll manifest as X swipes on the lips. We also have a spider jumping onto your mouth, and then you can feel an insect scurrying to the right, basically using random impulses. Afterwards, the user must shoot a flare gun at a spider, exploding into goo that splashes the user. This is random impulses as well, but it's centered on the mouth and at a higher frequency. And there's a large boss spider dripping with venom. So as you walk through that, you feel random Y swipes on the mouth. We also tried a school simulation to showcase various real world objects, such as this water fountain. When users lean in and their lips meet the water stream, they feel a series of rapid vibrating impulses. Later, they go to the break room where they sit down to drink some coffee. This utilizes animated Z swipes to simulate liquid entering the mouth, and you can actually feel the haptic node translating into the mouth. You can also take a puff of a cigarette, which is a high frequency persistent node where the cigarette meets the lips. And the user can brush their teeth before they return to work. So upon lifting the toothbrush to their mouth, our system animates the haptic node moving back and forth with the toothbrush. The final demo scenario is a motorcycle racing game. Our system animates a wind effect by rendering 2 outward moving swipes on the lips. There's also boxes that break apart on collision. When you hit them, it generates a single impulse on the user's lips, lasting for 500 milliseconds, as if like a piece of the box hit you in the face. It starts to rain, which manifests as a series of slow impulses that hit the mouth at random locations. And finally, there's puddles on the track, which splash the user, which our system haptically renders as a series of rapid random location impulses on the lips. So we did 2 studies. I'm not going to talk about them, but you can find them in the paper. The first one is a perception study to measure the average threshold of where our users could perceive the haptic effect on their lips, teeth, and tongue, as well as a spatial acuity test to see like how far apart we can place a node where users can distinguish the different nodes. We also did a user experience study. So we had users go through the 12 scenarios that I described and basically gave them a bunch of Likert scale surveys where they talk about like the realism and the localization and the immersion and all of those various categories, and gave us a rating of it so that we can aggregate those numbers. So again, not going to go over the results, but essentially having feedback really enhanced the experience and basically every category according to our participants. We rated higher than having no feedback at all, with like realism, immersion, fun, preference. And here's a video of people using the system. That's actually Karan in the video, the first one. And they enjoyed the device. They thought it was an interesting feeling, and it even had participants reacting like Karan tried to slap the spider off of his mouth. And yeah, so the last few points I have is that the power consumption right now, what we have is like about 2.71% of Oculus battery per hour. We want to make sure that you could potentially tether it to the Oculus. Again, early stage work. Some of our limitations were that it's still 15 millimeters thick, which is pretty bulky, and it also brings the transducer closer to the mouth, so it's harder to focus. It weighs about 107 grams, so it adds a lot of weight, which so over a long period of time, it is a bit tiring to wear. Right now, we only render one node. That's not an inherent limitation. That's just how I coded my software. So you can only feel one haptic node at a time. And so we think that limits the expressivity. You can only feel one point at a time. So that's one of our limitations. And then calibration was very difficult because we did that manually through kind of trying to find the center of your lips relative to the headset by moving the haptic node in space. So that was a difficulty we ran into, which is also something we want to change in future work, which is automating that calibration and making it more compact with these kind of new transducers that we found. We're thinking about maybe making a new version that looks a lot cleaner and works just as well or even better by optimizing the PCB geometry and then changing the software to handle multiple nodes and add haptic expressivity. Yeah, so that's all. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me or check out my website. And now it's Karan.
Thank you, Vivian.
So do you want to do
great.
the questions for this one first, and then I can present, or do you want to sort of get it back to back?
Let's do it after, because I think Barry is also having trouble logging back on. So we'll just collect them and ask them afterwards.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So hey folks, I'm Karan. I'm a PhD student at the Human Computer Interaction Institute at Carnegie Mellon University. So this talk will be much more on the tech side of things. So as we have sort of all stakeholders in this world of augmented and virtual reality, and we're building towards this future, one very important aspect to that is body digitization. And what I mean by that is this ability to sort of track our whole body, our hands, and sort of digitize different aspects of ourselves in this virtual world or this mixed reality world. So along those lines, we have this project called Controller Pose, which is a system for inside-out body capture with VR controller cameras. Now, while this is a system that we build in virtual reality, the core sensing technology of it can also translate over to augmented reality or mixed reality paradigms. So with that in mind, let me sort of talk to you more about Controller Pose. Now, if you look at the growth of contemporary VR devices, it really started taking off as a consumer product about half a decade ago with systems such as the HTC Vive. Now, apart from these headsets, right, this came with two handheld controllers and the Lighthouse base stations. Now, if any of you have worked with these systems before, you have to mount these base stations externally that you can see over here. And its field of view is quite limited because it relied on laser tracking to estimate the position and orientation of the headset and handheld controllers. Now, if you sort of wanted more fidelity and sort of a full body tracking experience, you had to instrument each limb with these accessory worn sensors. And these were all needed multiple external base stations. And I remember working with it at my time at Microsoft, and these would always go in and out of field of view or sort of go on and off. And I had to remove or move these base stations and place them strategically to always get a better view or a full body tracking system. Now, to make these systems much more mobile and practical, inside-out tracking techniques were proposed, wherein you did not require such external points of instrumentation. However, such systems would generally only track the position of a user's head and hands, as we saw in Oculus Quest, or even in the controllerless demo, using the cameras, we could only get hand tracking. So basically what we saw was this trade-off between practicality and the fidelity of the captured pose. For example, you had this immersive environment and you're playing this great climbing game and you're fully immersed, but then you look down and you can't see your body, right? I mean, and if you look at apart from games, if you use productivity applications, such as VR meeting spaces, we see similar things. For example, in which you have these ghost-like bodies hovering over an office space, but not really any full body sort of experience, which your legs sort of fully into the picture. Now, what we ideally want is that systems that give us high fidelity body pose, but with very minimal instrumentation. So for this purpose, research communities have started looking into more mobile systems by making use of head-mounted cameras. Now, here's an example view from this head-mounted cameras, such as that from Oculus Quest or even that from Microsoft HoloLens. Great for tracking hands, right? You can see that the hands are in the area with less occlusion, but this egocentric camera view sort of gives a very distorted view or an incomplete view of the user's lower body. So in controller pose, we considered an alternative method to capturing the user's body. That is integrating cameras into the VR controllers where batteries, computation, and the wireless communication already exist, right? So like you have these controllers, and what if you put the cameras on the top and bottom of it, and then you can sort of see the whole body. Now, the cool part about this is there's already built-in hardware into the controllers. So what we did was we put an edge TPU, a Google Coral on it, and connected these two cameras with it such that all the processing could happen on the edge, and we could get this low latency system that worked in near real time to get the full body pose of a person. Here you can see Vivian holding this camera, and our controller-borne cameras can now capture a much more superior view of the body for digitization. I'll quickly walk you through the technical stack of what this looks like. So first, our pipeline starts with these 4 raw camera feeds coming from the left and right controllers. Next, we correct each camera for the fisheye distortion, because again, because of these wild, very wide field of view cameras, there's a lot of distortion along these edges. So once we correct from that, we can perform a cylindrical projection, which preserves the relative body proportions of the user's body. And then we stitch the 2 images together into a panorama view with a gradient blend. So this leaves us with 2 minimally occluded around 185-degree views of the user from each controller. We can then estimate the 2D pose points in each view. So after that, we sort of have this, we sort of tied it in with the very highly accurate position and orientation data that we got from the user's head and hands in the VR space from the controllers itself, and had this multimodal multi-fusion network that take this multi-view data and combined it with the SIG stuff data reported from the headset and controllers. Now, what this outputted was the 3D pose estimate, and we trained our custom neural network for this. So here you can see the live output of my system. So you can see Vivian over here doing some squats and also like lifting her legs. And to help project outlier poses, we sort of also use inverse kinematics and various human kinematic constraints to sort of showcase how the full body tracking can look, even when there are brief periods of tracking loss in which the central controller cannot see the human fully into the picture. And you can see this, how the skeleton would look and how this full body avatar would look, right? Like you can now see your legs, you can sort of raise it. You can use this to interact with the body, with your virtual world around you. So I won't walk you through the evaluation, but basically we asked different people to come into our lab and sort of move in different poses. Now here you just see some terminal poses, but we collected with people doing a bunch of motions and sort of playing different VR games. We collected a lot of data and we found that, well, given it's a initial prototype system, there was a high Euclidean error, around 7 centimeters of Euclidean error. Hopefully we can bring that error down. I'll talk to you about that a bit more, but this is more than enough to sort of develop some very cool example applications. So my favorite was Feet Saver, right? Instead of Beat Saver, and using your hands to hit blocks, you can also use your feet to sort of hit these different blocks that are coming your way with your feet. Another example was we created this human Tetris game in which the users must assume the correct full body pose to sort of avoid obstacles and progress in this game. And we also created another hockey goalie demo in which the users can block shots. Now you can see that how the user is using the full body and full expressivity of any part of their body to sort of interact with the VR world. You can imagine a similar scenario in augmented reality, where instead of just your hands that that HoloLens tracks, you have your full body tracking enabled that you can interact with different parts of the real world, and that you can sense as well. And you can imagine the new interaction paradigms that can open up. We can also sort of extend the repertoire of exercise tracking apps in VR fitness apps, such as rep counting, different squats, or even lunges, for example, over here. So given that it's a research system, there are obviously a few trade-offs, right? So while we can digitize the lower body, it nonetheless has pros and cons like any other technical approach. So first is, I'll quickly walk over this, is that it cannot resolve a good view of the body if the hands are too close to the user, right? If it's by the side of the user, and certainly in the hands are resting by the side of the body, we do get a lot of occlusion. And again, this is another cases of self-occlusion, where the controllers sort of occlude themselves. And being a vision-based technique, there are certainly clothing-based occlusion if someone is wearing very loose or baggy clothing. But in the future, what we want to do is actually integrate these controller-based cameras with also the cameras from the headsets. So these all work together to sort of give you this full body view, and then move away from just pose, but also like realistic human 3D rendering and neural capture. For example, like your clothing, your facial expressions, your hair, it all is sort of captured in this virtual world. So with that, I'm going to end the presentation and open for questions.
Oh, thank you so much, Karan. We appreciate it, but we have to keep moving. So if anyone has questions, they can hold it for the end if you do want to stay on. And also, we put your website over there as well as Vivian, so they can contact you over there. But it looks like some really great stuff you're doing, and we encourage everyone to visit Pittsburgh. And Vivian moved to New York City. I guess she's commuting to Pittsburgh weekly. Alrighty, have a wonderful night. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it, and we'll take any questions at the end. Next up, we have Richard Perry, founder and CEO of RefractAR, creators of homeAR, an augmented reality platform for property visualization. Their mission is to transform the process of buying and selling new homes, starting with the buyer experience. Prior to founding RefractAR, he co-founded a digital marketing agency, in addition to doing work for great clients such as Microsoft. They had active R&D programs that focused on technologies such as progressive web apps, beacons, and augmented reality. Previous to that, he held senior marketing roles in the New Zealand technology sector, where he is fortunate enough to live on New Zealand's hibiscus coast with his family and their numerous pets. Thank you so much, Richard, for joining us. It's great to have you here.
Thanks very much, Andy. And it's a tough act to follow. There's some very cool stuff people are doing here. Sorry, I'm battling even to get my screen sharing going by comparison to what was just presented. 1 second. 1 second. Sorry, Tim. All right, you got my screen there, Andy?
Yeah, it looks good. Thank you.
Oh, good. All right. So yeah, as Andy said, I'm Richard Penny. I'm CEO of a company called RefractAR Labs. We're headquartered down here in Auckland, New Zealand. And our primary focus is on homeAR, which is our architectural visualization platform, which we currently deliver via a SaaS model to builders and architects and property developers. So I'm not a technical founder, and I need to get that out in the open pretty quickly before you guys ask me tricky questions. My session is going to will be more focused on some of the non-technical aspects of creating a business from AR and some of the learnings from the journey that we've had so far. So yeah, no product roadmap talk or talking about the 60 things that actually we'd all much rather talk about. So forgive me if some of the stuff I talk about sounds a little bit like a business 101 thing. Clearly, I'm an old guy with graying or lost hair with plenty of business experience. And so I was actually surprised by how easy it was for me to miss some of the fundamentals along the way as I started to try and build a business around AR and specifically around architectural visualization. So just quickly a bit about how I ended up here. I ended up as a founder of a tech startup by a pretty non-standard route. I'm not a developer, as I said. Career's been in marketing. And in 2017, I had my own agency, digital agency, marketing agency, and I was really intrigued by AR as a technology, and particularly when AR Kit and AR Core came to market and changed the game. It meant that we could obviously focus more on what AR could do rather than how to do it. So long story short, quit my job, hired a young developer, and one of the only developers in New Zealand with any AR experience, and we started to build some stuff. And we started prototyping a bunch of different things just so as we could really get the hang of the technology. If I then, that coincided with my wife and I buying a plot of land with dreams of building a great home, but without really a clear vision of what that might look like or certainly what that was going to cost. So, and during that process, I was really surprised to find that the buyer experience for people who are trying to spend what is, realistically an awful lot of money, particularly relative to, most private individuals, the buyer experience was woefully inadequate. So when we compare that with the experience we get when we buy almost anything really, and all of those things being at a fraction of the cost of a new house, it got me thinking about the role that AR could play in that. Now, it's a pretty obvious application of AR, right? Putting a house in AR, being able to see that before you buy it seemed pretty obvious. I thought surely that's already out there. Did the research, basically found nothing other than some rough proofs of concept or some mock-ups. And so with my still very early knowledge of AR technology, I thought, how hard can this be? Let's make something. Now, we're not talking about neuroscience here to get a 3D model of a house into AR and give people an informed buying experience. So it seemed to be something that we could do reasonably easily. Obviously, the answer to the question of how hard can it be turned out to be a lot harder than you think. So that's what we set out to do, and that's how homeAR came about. So we've built homeAR, which we believe is the most realistic pre-build visualization experience you can have, before you build a home. And that realism is a combination of three things, really. It's obviously how it looks and whether the thing actually looks like a house. That's table stakes. It's got to look like a house to be believable. The second one is how it feels when we interact with it, and the user experience there, and whether that feels like a house or just a 3D widget. We can talk a bit more about that. And also, obviously, how it's experienced, and being primarily on site and full scale rather than other experiences that are monitor based that are usually in a home or an architect's office or what, along those lines. So those are all really important aspects of a great AR solution. And again, I'm not going to focus on those today. I'm going to focus more about how do we go about making that. If we get those three things, how do we make that into a business? So we've, because we've got a product that people love, right? We've been in market for 2 years. We've got customers who love it. We've got buyers who love it. We've got a product that creates real value in the hands of the right people. We've got a market that's obviously huge when you consider residential construction, and that doesn't even touch on some of the other parts of that market. And we've got a problem that we think really needs solving. So you'd think that the rest should pretty much fall into line and should be easy, but it's not, right? And so I don't know you guys all get that, but and it's not the tech challenges that are keeping me up at night. So if we rewind back to 2018 and the early days of RefractAR and homeAR, we were already confident in the use case. We've been able to get 3D models into AR, and we'd started to figure out some of the technical and UX challenges that we needed to solve. But then we started thinking about, well, how do we build a business around this? And so we went out and we showed it to some home buyers, and we said, what do you think about this? If you were building a house, would you want this? And what would you pay for this? And we got a lot of great feedback. But then we very quickly realized that no matter how much a potential house buyer wanted our technology, and no matter how much they wanted to pay for it, they couldn't buy it because they didn't have the content that we needed to be able to deliver the experience. So that immediately caused us to go back to the drawing board. And we had to change our approach and design a product that we would then sell to builders. Now, in the New Zealand market, the housing market is very much dominated by sort of a design and build or pre-designed homes. So most people go to builders to get their new home. So not to architects. It's a small fraction of the market. It's done initially by architects. Most people go to a builder, and so therefore builders seem like our logical customer. So we designed a business model that was really a marketplace that builders could put all their plans in, we'd turn them into AR, people would discover them, people would walk through them, they'd decide which house they wanted, they'd send some really hot leads through to the builders, and everybody would be happy. The buyers would get the house they wanted to buy, the builders would get really high quality leads, and that would be our business model. So we built an early prototype. We created a sales deck that looked something like this, and we did some early market validation. We sold our first couple of deals, and on the back of that, we scraped up some friends and family money to design and build V1 of our solution. So one of the unique things about AR, as I'm sure many of you will relate to, is it's actually really easy to develop prototypes and one-off proofs of concept that are really impactful and create a lot of buzz and get people excited. But to turn those into scalable and stable, reliable, and usable products is a whole nother thing, right? So that was the challenge we faced. But we got a product to market, and this is hard to look at now because this is 2 years ago. It's pretty cringy now, but at the time we thought it was awesome. My mum thought it was awesome. In fact, plenty of people told it was awesome, right? And by some genuine measures, it was. We had big brands in New Zealand that really wanted it. We got ourselves into some of the biggest builder and real estate companies in New Zealand. Our QR code started popping up on real estate signs, and we started seeing links to our software on listings in New Zealand's equivalent to realtor.com. So we thought, we got pretty excited at this point. But what we didn't fully appreciate at that time was that the hard stuff was really still ahead of us, right? So, as I said, a great thing about the space is it's quite easy to get people excited, but the tougher piece is to carry that excitement through, particularly when you're asking businesses and people to make real behavioral change, whether that be at an individual level or at an organizational level. And that's what we're trying to do with homeAR. So that led us to the realization that success for homeAR was going to require a lot more than just an awesome AR experience. And, so obviously it has to be awesome, but it also has to deliver genuine value. Oh, yeah, tech, okay, cool. It has to be easy to buy, interesting. And it has to be easy to adopt. What does that mean? So our experience has been getting people excited is the easy bit, getting them to buy is a little bit harder, but we've had some success there. Getting them to adopt and to commit to making change in their business so that they can get to that full value is the toughest part. And when you're a SaaS business like we are, you're obviously only as good as your ability to keep your customers. So I'm not going to bore you with the full journey of where we've been over the last few years. It's been a tricky ride with, lots of hard stuff and lots of optimism and lots of learnings. And, we've still really only just begun. But wanted to share with you 4 core principles, which are really obvious, but we've had to really put at front and center when we make decisions to make sure that we're developing a balanced business and ensure that we're not underinvesting in one area that then leads to the detriment of others. So these are our four principles, and they're super obvious. And they're design principles, both in terms of the product design and also how we deliver the product. So the first and most obvious one is the product has to be useful. Sounds super obvious. This is really just ensuring we focus on building features that add real value, not just because we can or because someone says it might be cool. And that seems really obvious. But when you've got people coming to us on a daily basis saying things like, "Oh, wouldn't it be nice if you could have clickable light switches?" So, we get a lot of that, and that's great. And I love that people are really enthusiastic about how this product could go forward, but we just need to make sure we stay really on point on deciding on what goes into our product. And when we're still at the stage where we're just getting people used to AR, erring on the side of keeping it really simple is just good product design, right? The second, it has to be usable. I'm conscious that I'm probably running pretty low on time. Andy, pull me off if time runs out.
You're good. You have until 8:05.
Okay, sweet. All good. So the second principle being usable, and we break this down into 3 pieces. And the first is the obvious UI UX piece that needs to be super easy to use. The second being easy to adopt, and that's from a business process standpoint. How do these businesses actually get this technology into their business and be able to use it to get what the results they want? And also it has to be easy to onboard. So how does it work with their existing technologies like the CAD software that they're using? So it's usable. The third is a focus on being contextual, and contextual to me sums up the crux of what AR is all about, right? And what makes it so unique and so powerful, having that understanding of the real environment and using that to deliver, using that in the context to deliver unique value in real time, unique information in real time. So that's a whole nother presentation, but this principle is we use to keep us focused on using AR for what AR is uniquely great at and not doing AR for AR's sake. And lastly, and arguably the most important piece is making our solution viable. Are we making it easy for our customers to take the leap? Do we have the right business model for the market we're trying to serve? And do we have the pricing that fits with the market and how it wants to buy? And that, to be honest, has been probably the biggest challenge we've faced along the way. And so I just wanted to quickly touch on what we've done there, right? So yeah, after launching in New Zealand and leaning into our go-to-market strategy, we sort of quite quickly got to the point where we realized that our business model was problematic, right? Because we kept having builders saying, we love this technology, we want it, but we don't want to be featured in a marketplace. We want it for ourselves. Can we have it for ourselves? And I kept going, yeah, sure, maybe, or no, because we were convinced that the marketplace was the vision for us. But over a period of time, it became pretty obvious that this was really constraining our appeal to the customers that we were trying to sell it to. And so we had to pretty quickly reevaluate our business model and start offering it as a service to builders so that they could offer it to their customers. So that's our offering now. I'm just going to quickly play this short video just to demonstrate where we're at with our business model right at this moment.
For a business like mine that markets, sells, designs and builds homes, each new home is a journey with lots on the line. So we want to make sure that the entire process is as smooth, as stress-free as possible for our customers and ourselves. Traditional plans and models are helpful, but they're static. We needed something that allowed our customers to truly experience and understand their new home. homeAR has changed everything. Without additional expensive hardware, homeAR empowers our sales team to give our customers a complete view of their home, allowing us to make changes quickly at the right stage of the process. homeAR provides a powerful visualization tool for every step of the buying and building process. We can now sell anytime, anywhere, using any modern smartphone or tablet. The homeAR experience gives our customers confidence as they understand and connect with every space and every angle like their home is already built. They can even walk through our floor plans with or without our team being there.
I'm going to kill that for the interest of time, really, but obviously just to convey the fact that we've now gone from a model that was designed to be a marketplace to a model that is now it's a B2B model, and we're now selling to builders, and our builders are using it as a tool to evolve their customer experience. Now, the other point I want to make is I don't believe that this is actually the business model that long term gives us the best chance of really having the transformational effect we can on this industry. But right now, as a really early technology and having people just trying to get their heads around it, it's a model that is allowing it to be adopted and people to get used to it, and it's allowing us to learn about the industry as we continue to evolve. So that's where we're at from a business model standpoint. Just going to quickly carry on here. In addition to making homeAR viable, we've also had to do a huge amount of work to make it possible for our customers to actually adopt and consume the service. So this little slide here just is a simplification of the business model that we've been aiming for. We massively underestimated what it would take to achieve this, right? The idea that people could upload their plans, use our publishing tools and deliver it in the hands of buyers. So we've had to do an awful lot of work that we really didn't understand to take the complexity away from the clients, so that, because they're building companies, they're not 3D modelers necessarily, they're not technology specialists, so that we've had to take that complexity on our side. And that meant that the stuff that we've had to build was a lot different to what we thought we were going to have to build. Now, building that pipeline to allow our customers to adopt our technology has actually turned into a huge source of competitive advantage for us, the ability to take 3D content from multiple different sources and be able to deliver a consistent experience. But again, it was a curveball we didn't expect. How long have I got, Andy?
Feel free to take a few more minutes if you'd like.
Cool. All right, just the last couple of slides here. I mean, clearly at the core of success of any product is what the product actually does, and the value it delivers, and not only what it does now, but what it will do in the future is obviously core to the ongoing success. And obviously, as a product company, this is actually where we're most comfortable and what comes most naturally. Now, obviously, I don't have time to press into that in this session, but one of the last things I did want to touch on is how we try and walk a pretty fine line between the Henry Ford's apocryphal building a faster horse type scenario, and listening only to our customers, or going the other extreme and just building a solution that we like, that is a solution looking for a problem that maybe we don't have right. So we use this approach, just call it lead and learn, right? So we've got an industry that's very slow to adapt. They aren't coming to us asking for, can we have AR visualization for our homes? Their customers do want a better experience, but they don't know what that looks like and don't know how to ask. And we've also got to be a bit humble. We don't yet know as much as our customers do about their industry. And so we can't just show up and say, this is what you need, buy it now or get left behind. So So but we also can't just sit back and wait for them to come to us, otherwise we'll be waiting forever, right? So we've developed this approach that we call lead and learn, and it's just simply, it acknowledges that we need to forge the way, we need to be brave, we need to build and be comfortable putting our ideas in front of people, but then being super open to our customers' feedback and listening to them to understand how we need to refine it and create a product that actually meets their needs. The last point I want to touch on today is, I have to keep reminding myself that even though we've been all in on AR for 4+ years, and I'm sure people on this call have been much longer, the world's still really just getting its head around this technology and understanding how they should think about it. And we're still working out how best to use it, and how to wrap a business around it and how to unlock its full value. And this is going to take time. But leaving you with this, the world needs to build 2 billion homes apparently, and over the next 80 years to keep up with population growth, we've got to build 2 billion homes. But building them is really only part of the job, and we've got to be able to match buyers and sellers in a super unsexy market economics type of way, but we've got to create an efficient market so that the industry that's geared up to actually building can do its thing. And the residential construction industry is inherently inefficient and really wasteful in a whole bunch of different ways that I could talk to you about. We're not going to try and solve all those problems, but with AR, we can unlock this customer experience piece that speeds up the buying process, increases market efficiency, and genuinely improves the overall economics. So just to make a point here, this industry is one of the last consumer-facing industries where there's effectively zero e-commerce, largely due to the nature of the product, right? It's big and it's heavy and it's built on site. But if we fast forward a little and we combine new modular and prefab construction methods, the unique properties of AR and what that can do in the buying and customer experience piece. And then if we think about what blockchain can offer in terms of the transactional piece, e-commerce for new homes is not only possible, but it's actually inevitable. So if we can achieve that, we can actually change the cost structures for people selling the homes, which again, if we dream a little bit, we can actually hopefully lower the cost of sales, lower the time to sell, the amount of capital tied up. And if we do those things, we genuinely can dream of bringing down the cost of housing. So I know that seems a bit of a reach, but that's generally the type of impact that the technologies that we're all using now over the long term, it's got the potential to have that level of impact on the world we live in. And that's the stuff that really gets me out of bed. So, but right now, the biggest challenge is finding the balance between short-term business viability and staying alive while we shape the future together. So hopefully that's been useful. I think that's enough for me.
Thank you so much, Richard. Great presentation. Let's see here. We just have a few questions. Let's see. Barry had to hop off, so I'll be handling it. What is the learning curve when teaching consumers or businesses how to use the product?
We underestimate it every single time, right? So we've done an awful lot of work around this, but we're still always surprised at the amount of times we come across customers where we've done a lot of work with, we're quite a long way down the track, then we actually get in front of them and we give them a live demo and they still aren't sure how to use this technology, and we put them with the iPad and they've got the house in front of them and they're like, what do I do here? And they're touching the screen, and then we have to put our hands on their shoulders and walk them into the experience. And so we just keep getting reminded that for all of us, it seems really logical and obvious, but we've still got plenty to do to help people, really understand the technology and get to grips with it and get comfortable with it.
Sure. You mentioned on a model versus a home. And I was wondering, how do you ensure the feeling of presence when viewing the home, so it doesn't just feel like you're just looking at a 3D model? How do you make it feel like you're actually inside of a home?
Well, I think the big part about that is something that is inherent in AR, right? So we're putting people inside of a digital home in real space, and the fact that you're seeing like this visual on my screen here, you're seeing your backyard with your pets, or roaming around. That gives you that feeling of presence. And obviously, we need to keep building the realism of the model to make the shadows as realistic as possible, and the reflections on the tap feel sure. Like they're real. But the presence comes from the fact that that you're in the real environment, and we're just adding a little bit to that.
Amazing. I love the it's incredible. You could see the backyard through the windows. Really amazing. Okay, last question. How do you think the app will be impacted by head-mounted displays, like AR headsets in the future?
I couldn't be more excited about the headset, the head-mounted displays of the future. And when we move from looking through this 2D screen and to a more immersive experience, that takes us to a whole new level. But one of the things that we've been really clear on right now is there's a huge amount of value that can be created with the devices that we've already got. And so we're building for now with an eye on the future, not going, when we get here, this is our business takes off. We're ready for that. We're excited about that. But there's so much value in AR delivered via a mobile device that's yet to be realized. And that's our number one job in the short term.
Sure. Awesome. Thank you so much, Richard.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Awesome. Let me know when you come to visit New York. Would love to get the chance to meet.
I will do.
Awesome.
Guys.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining New York Augmented Reality. And with that, we will wrap it up and call it a night. So thank you for joining. Thanks again, Richard, for joining.